Armonolia is not a medical expert. He holds no advanced degrees in psychology or medicine. This program, For the Culture, was created for informational purposes only and is not to be perceived as professional advice in regards to health or any other field. Any comments Olia makes on this show are the results of careful research and his own personal experience as someone on the autism spectrum. Please do not disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking help because of something you may have heard on this program. If you or any person you may know has a medical concern, they should consult with a licensed professional, physician, or healthcare worker. Previously on For the Culture.
Hi, I'm Armonolia. In this current age, we're surrounded by information. However, this ability does come at a very important cost. Not all the information we find may actually be true. The more these stigmas, myths, generalizations, and misconceptions exist, the greater the difficulty of inclusion. Therefore, if we want to be inclusive, the very first thing we need to do is help set the record straight. So today, I'll be breaking down 10 of these misconceptions and generalizations in a two-part episode.
Wait a moment. You thought this was it?
Thanks for joining us for this special preview. And now, our feature presentation.
Hi, I'm Armonolia. I'm a journalist and podcaster who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3. I spent the last few years as an advocate and activist raising awareness and acceptance about autism. Neurodiversity has become a talking point, but few people know what it means to experience life on the spectrum. I want to share not only my knowledge and firsthand experiences, but also the experiences and knowledge of others. Hopefully, this show will be able to do both. Inclusivity happens when we all embrace each other's differences. I think now is the perfect time to bridge the gap between the neurotypical and the neurodiverse. It's time to do it for the culture.
This episode of For the Culture is sponsored by ND Renegade.
In the last episode, we talked briefly about the misinformation crisis that has fueled a recent historic societal divide. In the modern information age, where we have so much data and information at our fingertips, not all that information may be accurate. The problem is that the internet is flooded with factual statements being intermingled with misconception, generalization, and innuendo. As I mentioned in the previous episode, there are many types of misconceptions, misinformation, and generalizations. There's misinformation and misconception intentionally planted to create an emotional base that could eventually cause harm. We're all very much familiar with that. And then there is the misinformation originally intended to be fact. It wasn't done maliciously, but rather as an effort to try and explain our world. The problem, however, was that they were proven wrong. And long after the fact, people still use these misconceptions to peddle poppy. Fear and ableism sells more than inclusion and understanding.
We're not just doing this for money. We're doing it for a load of money.
In the autism community, there are plenty of these misconceptions. If I had $1 for each one, well, I'd be the richest autistic person on the planet.
What a man, what a man, what a man, what a mighty good man, what a mighty, mighty good man.
I don't even have to launch a rocket. Recently, I asked you all on Instagram to answer this question. Which myth about autism annoys you the most? I received a wide variety, including all autistic people having savant skills, that being autistic is something to be sorry for, how autistic people should be treated like children, and how autistic people affected only white men despite it affecting everybody equally. The vast majority of these misconceptions are upsetting and have been in the minds of so many on the spectrum. Last time, I addressed the 5 myths and misconceptions that amuse me. Today, let's do the opposite. I'm gonna break down the 5 generalizations and misconceptions that disappoint me. But before that, I wanna turn my attention to my fellow spectrum creators. To these ladies, gents, and non-binary members alike, I ask you, what myths and misconceptions about autism disappoint you the most?
So the first myth and misconception about autism that disappoints me the most is that all autistic people have the same skills and difficulties. Although autistic people do share difficulties in communication, sensory input, and repetitive behaviors, we're all different. If you've met one person with autism, then you met only one person with autism. That's why it's called spectrum disorder. The other myth about autism is that autism is caused by vaccines. That one just pisses me off. I don't need to explain how harmful that one is. There's been extensive research within the last 20 years that has shown no correlation between vaccines and autism. It was from a flawed study of children with developmental disorders. The sample size was very small. There was ethical violations and scientific misrepresentation. Luckily, the paper was withdrawn and he lost his medical license. But the implications of the study still affect how people view vaccines and people with autism.
One of the most annoying misconceptions surrounding autism is that all autistic people are savants. This idea comes from the 1988 film The Rain Man. The autistic character Raymond is also a savant. This has led the general public to correlating being a savant with being autistic, when in fact they are separate things. Just like autistic people, that is non-autistic people, autistic people don't all have the same intelligence level, and we for sure are not all savants. Additionally, the close association of being a savant and autism comes from an unintentional ableist perspective that there needs to be a superhuman aspect to disability in order to make up for having that disability. So we are better off without that misconception. Another disappointing misconception surrounding autism is that all, or at least a majority of autistic people are men. The statistics show a rise in autism diagnoses, that 1 in 42 boys are autistic, but only 1 in 89 girls are. If you look at the diagnosis process, various biases, and who tends to get diagnosed later in life, the statistic is not a true reflection of who is or isn't autistic. It's a reflection of the idea that girls and female-presenting individuals cannot be autistic simply for the fact that they are girls, which is untrue. Additionally, it actively excludes the fact that a significant percentage of autistic individuals are not cisgender. There is a reason why queer autistics have our own day during Pride Month.
Thanks, folks. If you guys want to follow all these fantastic people, go down to the description. All links are attached. After the break, the 5 generalizations and misconceptions that disappoint me. Just a heads up, we'll be diving into some darker territory than normal, so we're going to need a bit of positivity. With that being said, let's not dance. Let's rock. A piece of clothing that's become a crucial part of my style are graphic tees. I feel good when I can show off aspects of my personality that I usually don't get to show off. Plus the fact the material is very comfortable and versatile, meaning I can make a statement and feel physically good at the same time. However, I noticed that with all the positive messages you find on any graphic t-shirt, one of the rarest ones are those with any mentions of autism awareness or acceptance. For many people with conditions such as autism and other spectrum disorders, ADHD, dyspraxia, dysgraphia, apraxia, or dyslexia, just to name a few, it can be very hard and very frustrating to not be heard or represented. ND Renegade focuses on raising awareness for neurodiversity issues using products such as t-shirts, hoodies, and sweatshirts. They want to shine a light on neurodiversity issues as well as creating and reinforcing neurodiversity pride. ND Renegade has original designs and collaborates with autistic creators such as myself to make exclusive material for the store. Oh, this is a great example. This shirt I'm wearing, telling you to be proudly authentic, you see that? It's a collaboration between ND Renegade and my podcast, Shadow Gallery Seminars. And not only does it look good, it feels even better. These are, hands down, the most comfortable t-shirts I've ever worn, even before you wash them. And they come with no troublesome tags that can cause rips when you try pulling them out because they scratch and itch. And I think we've all been there at some point. All ND Renegade products, they're ethically sourced. All inks used in the printing process are water-based, non-toxic, vegan, eco-friendly, and disposed of according to supplier guidelines to ensure no harm to the environment. The poly bags used in the packaging are recyclable, low-density polyethylene compliant with the FDA and the USDA. Not only that, but when you buy these products, you can wear them knowing they were made without sweatshops, child labor, forced, involuntary, or trafficked labor, harassment, abuse, and corporal punishment. All workers receive mandated wages, allowances, and benefits paid according to law, safe and healthy work environments, and safe and healthy housing where provided. How great is that? Seriously. In other words, these are products that are amazing on all fronts. It's an absolute win no matter which way you look at it. Oh, and thanks to the fine folks at ND Renegade, if you use the code NDRARMON15 at checkout, you get 15% off your order. That's right, use the code NDRARMON15 at checkout and you get 15% off. So what are you waiting for? Get your gear and join the Neuro Tribe with ND Renegade. And we're back. Before the break, I promised that I would break down the 5 myths and misconceptions that disappoint me. So, let's get to it.
Put that coffee down.
Just a quick reminder about the qualifications needed to be an entry on this list. It needs to be a misconception or a generalization that has had heavy circulation and is currently active despite it being already disproven. Fair warning to my autistic viewers, some of these will be pretty upsetting. However, the only way we can move past these is to deal with the rumors, myths, and misconceptions and generalizations head on. So folks, fasten your seatbelts.
It's going to be a bumpy night.
Let's start with the first misconception. Vaccines cause...
No, God!
Okay, let's try this again. Vaccines cause...
No, God, please, no! No!
Vaccine...
No!
No! Enough! Thank you. Vaccines cause autism. This is, without question, the most infamously false statement about autism ever published. According to a recent Gallup poll, 56% of Americans are either unsure about or believe that vaccines cause autism, despite it being soundly disproven. How did we get here? On February 28th, 1998, then Dr. Andrew Wakefield, a British gastroenterologist, released a study in The Lancet. The study hypothesized a connection between autism and the MMR vaccine. The parents of 67% of the subjects reported, quote, behavioral symptoms within 2 weeks of vaccination. In other words, the MMR vaccines caused their children's autism. However, there were some suspicions.
Hold up, wait a minute.
First of all, as the MMR vaccine had already been approved for mass use in 1971, this study would have been classified by the FDA as a phase 4 trial. The common protocol for making a conclusion such as Wakefield's would be monitoring, quote, large diverse populations and examining data. Even in a phase 1 trial, or the beginning stages of a drug trial to ensure safety for mass consumption, the bare minimum number of people required to participate, according to the FDA, is 20. Wakefield's sample size was 12 people. Small sample size aside, if the results could be repeated in larger populations, it would show that Wakefield's hypothesis was correct. The thing is, no lab has repeated Wakefield's results since the original study was published 23 years ago. Investigations showed that the 12 families who had participated were recruited through a lawsuit against MMR manufacturers, and Wakefield himself had a conflict of interest that would have made him a boatload of money to destroy MMR's credibility. As a result, in 2010, The Lancet retracted the study and Wakefield was permanently stripped of his medical license. However, the damage was done. Groups such as Autism Speaks and the Autism Society of America picked up the ball and ran with it, with both organizations claiming outright that vaccines cause autism, using this study as proof.
You know, it's amazing. You are 100% wrong. I mean, nothing you've said has been right.
Because people trusted both organizations, it launched the infamous and ongoing anti-vax movement. This led both to the resurgence of measles, which had previously been eradicated in the United States in 2000, and eventually massive fear-mongering in the recent months at the tail end of the COVID-19 pandemic. But let's think about it for a second. Even if vaccines did cause autism, long-term, it would be infinitely better than being sick with measles, mumps, or rubella. Measles alone killed 200,000 people worldwide in 2020. To date, no one has died of autism. Ever. It speaks to how much stigma there is around being autistic, how fearful parents can be, and how much we need to change our medical system to make diagnosis and intervention more accessible to those who don't have the means. I hope that programs such as this can help break the stigma, and with scientific and social advancement, we can help ease minds to the point where people don't have to falsely believe that a vaccine that saves lives causes autism. However, that will take time. Moving on, individuals with autism are violent. This is just extremely upsetting, especially after the death of Ma'Khia Bryant. For those of you who don't remember, she had been charging at her sister and grandmother with a knife after arguing, and it was unclear as to whether or not she was going to attack them. When police arrived at the scene, Bryant, still with the knife in her hand, was shot and later pronounced dead. It later became apparent that Bryant was diagnosed with autism, with the narrative of autistic people being violent growing because of this. To say, however, that all autistic people are violent is extremely hurtful and untrue. Which leads me, ironically enough, to the third misconception: autistic people are cold or lack feelings.
Right.
To say that a person lacks feelings basically means you're calling them less than a being. Every being has emotions. Yes, it's difficult to read a room, and sometimes it's hard to express how we feel. But that doesn't mean we don't have emotions, and it's no call to throw your weight around. We all have emotions, no doubt about it. Next, autism is a disease, autism can be cured, and that we should be looking for a cure for autism. Autism is not a sickness. It's not something you can catch or is contagious. We discussed it at length with the epidemic misnomer. However, what's even more offensive is that people think there's some mystery cure and that one should be looked for, even though autism, like I said before, is not a disease. There are so many fake treatments and cures out there, and the fact that people make so much money off of the fear of something you shouldn't even be afraid of or feel sorry about is just sickening. Autism is a uniqueness. It's something no one should take away. Do I believe there should be early intervention to help make life a little easier? Absolutely. I had it and I'd like to think I turned out fine. However, it's not a disease. It cannot be cured. So, to everyone who watches this, let's stop treating it as such.
Yes, you can! Just do it!
And finally, children with autism cannot learn. That, too, is a massive misunderstanding. It is difficult for people with autism to learn, no question. Autism is a developmental disability, and as such, many with autism do struggle in school. I was no exception. However, the key word is difficult, not impossible.
Nothing is impossible!
Through constant repetition, through practice, through ups and downs, through perseverance, I learned how to learn. And I'd like to think I'm good at it. I know I'm not alone. To say children with autism cannot learn when there are so many brilliant minds on the spectrum doesn't make any sense, and it can be seen as extremely belittling. It's difficult, but not impossible. So that wraps up the two-part episode. As you can see, misinformation runs rampant, and information we once saw as fact can be easily proven to be false, leading to a greater understanding by all of us as we learn more and more about being inclusive.
I like to teach the world to sing. Sing with me. Perfect harmony, perfect harmony. I like to write the world.
11 myths, misconceptions, and generalizations cracked. In the meantime, let's pose the question of the video. In what way do you feel people misunderstand how your autism affects you? I'm excited to read your responses in the comments below. In the meantime, thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like the video, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications. You can also follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Aut Culture, as you can see up here. And you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Armonolia. See this little thing down here? Yeah, go follow both. I'm Armonolia. This has been For the Culture, and I'll see you next time.